I've never been the kind of person to scare easy. When you spend enough nights in hospitals, fear becomes background noise, just like the humming lights, the soft beeping of monitors, or the occasional patient moaning through morphine. You learn how to read silence. You know when it means someone's sleeping peacefully, and when it means something's wrong. I'm Caleb. I was 30 when this happened. Been a nurse for just over 10 years, mostly on night shifts. There's a certain rhythm to working nights, a kind of stillness that settles over everything after 1 a.m. Some find it unnerving, but for me, it was a kind of peace. Until that one night at Green Valley Medical, upstate, October. I never worked nights again after that. It was a Tuesday, cold, wet, fog rolling thick over the parking lot. One of those nights where your scrubs cling damp to your calves, even under your raincoat. The hospital looked like it was floating in mist. I was on the 3rd floor, surgical recovery, with a couple of ICU overflow beds and a palliative room that always felt colder than the rest. Quiet wing. Only 2 of us up there that night, Raj and me. Emily had gone down to the ER to assist with an incoming trauma. The smell of sanitizer clung to my hands, familiar, grounding, a tiny reminder I'd been here before, that things were still routine. For now. I'd just finished turning one of the post-ops who'd been complaining about hip pain. Afterward, I made my rounds like always, checking vitals, adjusting IV drips, jotting notes into charts, everything routine. Until I passed the med room. The keypad light was green. It should have been red, locked, always. I stopped. The hairs on my arms rose. The med room door was cracked open, light slicing across the floor like something waiting to move. I stared at it, registering. No one was supposed to be in there, not without logging it. And no nurse leaves that door open, not even for a second. I stood still, listened. Nothing but the soft buzz of the fridge compressor inside the room, the one that held our controlled meds. I called out, quietly at first. "Hello? Anyone in there?" No answer. I stepped closer, muscles tensing. My thumb hovered over the badge clipped to my chest. Habit. When I pushed the door open, I half expected to see Raj, maybe checking something. Instead, I froze. There was a man standing at the far cabinet, back to me, still, focused. He wasn't wearing scrubs, or a badge. His jacket was worn thin and speckled with dried rain. His jeans, wet at the cuffs, left faint marks on the tile. No one I recognized. My pulse started thumping hard behind my ears. "Sir, this area's restricted," I said carefully. He didn't turn, didn't speak. He was holding something, right hand, shoulder height, between his fingers. A vial. I took another step in. The air felt cooler than usual, too cool. My hand grazed the wall, steadying myself. "Sir, I need you to turn around." Still nothing, just that unnatural stillness. I glanced toward the desk phone next to the fridge, just a few feet from him. Then, without turning, he said, "Wrong floor." Voice dry, gravelly, like he'd been silent for days. My skin prickled. "Yeah, wrong floor, let's step out." Then he moved, slowly, turning just enough for me to see the side of his face. Pale skin, patchy beard, eyes, sharp but hollow, and clipped to his belt, half covered by his jacket, was a box cutter, blade half extended. I stopped breathing. "Put the vial down," I said. His gaze didn't leave the cabinet, like I wasn't even there. And in that moment, I remember thinking, if I run, he might follow. If I freeze, maybe he'll vanish. Stupid thoughts, but fear makes its own rules. I started backing toward the panic button. My shoes squeaked against the floor, too loud in that tight room. He mumbled something. I didn't catch it. Then he stepped toward me. No urgency, just deliberate. The smell hit me. Body odor, old booze, something medicinal and rotten underneath. I slammed the button. "Security to 3rd floor medroom, now!" But he didn't run, just kept walking. And my brain, my stupid, overworked, adrenaline-drenched brain, did the exact wrong thing. I reached out, tried to stop him. He jerked back, sending me crashing into the supply car. Metal bit into my hip. My ears rang, vision narrowed. Everything going sideways as he slipped past. By the time I scrambled out after him and shouted to Raj to block the stairwell, the guy had vanished. We searched every floor, every exit, every hallway, even checked the damn roof. Nothing. The next morning we reviewed the footage. At 1:03 a.m., the medroom door opened. The man entered, head down, cap pulled low. He never looked up, stayed in that blind spot between two cameras. At 1:08, I appeared. At 1:09, he slipped out behind me. And that was it. He was never seen on camera again. No exits triggered, no alarms, no staff interactions. He just disappeared. Then we did the med count. Midazolam was missing, a fast-acting sedative, sometimes abused for its euphoric rush. Locked, tracked, double signed for, and it was gone. I gave my statement to the hospital and the police. They asked the usual questions. Could he have been a former patient, a staff member from years ago, a courier? None of it fit. We had no record of him, no matching badge scan, no fingerprints. Security changed the codes. They added an extra deadbolt, policy updates, the works. I asked to be transferred to day shift, told them I needed more normal hours. I didn't mention that every time I closed my eyes, I saw that flicker of silver on his belt. 6 years later, I still haven't stepped into that med room. Sometimes when the rain comes in cold and sideways and the halls are too quiet, I still find myself pausing near that wing, glancing down the corridor, like I'm expecting that same flicker of green on the keypad. And occasionally, when the building creaks just right or a fridge compressor kicks on behind me, I swear I hear his voice again. Low, gravel in his throat. Wrong floor. And sometimes, I think he's still here, just waiting for the keypad light to flicker green again. Hospitals forget things, patients, records, people, but the basement remembers, and when it wants you, no one hears you scream. I'm Mateo, 19, laundry worker at St. Jerome's Hospital, graveyard shift. It's not glamorous, but it pays. And after everything with my dad, I had to step up, help my mom. People say hospital laundry is mindless. They're right, most nights. It's sweat, bleach, heavy linens, and machines that sound like jet engines. You move on autopilot. No one talks. But sometimes the basement notices you. And those nights, you don't walk out the same. There's only two of us at night, me and Irene. She's been here forever, they say. Late 50s. Smokes like a chimney, doesn't talk much, just nods. The day shift avoids her, thinks she's rude, cold. Don't take it personal, someone once told me. She's just like that. I didn't mind. We had our rhythm. I wheeled bins, she sorted. I folded sheets, she lined up the next load. Hours passed without a word. But every now and then, I'd catch her watching the dark corner behind the dryers. Not blankly, intently, like she knew something was there. Once, I asked if she was okay. She just nodded. Last Thursday started like always. Humid. The basement sweats in summer. Around 2 a.m. mid-cycle, the lights flickered. Just a second, but everything stopped. The dryers, the fans, the comforting hum went dead, then blackout. Red floor lights blinked on, faint and flickering. Suddenly it was so quiet you could hear your own heartbeat. Irene didn't even flinch, just muttered, "Breaker again." First words, all shift. She grabbed the flashlight from the wall and motioned for me to follow. The lower level of St. Jerome's is a maze. Storage, maintenance, the old cold rooms. It's easy to get lost down there, easier to disappear. We passed rusted bins and sealed doors. The beam from Irene's flashlight cut through the dust in thin, shaky lines. Then we heard it. Clang, metal, loud, echoing, not dropped, thrown. Followed by dragging, wet, slow, too close. I stopped, so did Irene. She said nothing, but I could see it on her face. She knew this wasn't normal. We turned the corner. There, across the tile, a blood-soaked sheet had been dragged in a straight line. It disappeared under a thick metal door, the kind with latches, not handles. Irene narrowed her eyes. That wasn't there earlier. "I see you?" I asked. No one brings ICU linens down without bags. She tried the door. It was locked. Then pounding, steady, measured, like it knew we were there. Irene staggered back, silence again. "Call security," she said. I reached for my phone. No signal, thick concrete, dead zone. "I'll go upstairs, use the wall phone." But before I moved, we heard breathing. Not ours, something else. Low, raspy, coming closer. Irene's flashlight snapped toward the far end of the hallway. Someone stood there, bare, soaked in red, his skin too tight like it had been stretched across his bones. Eyes wide, locked on us. Didn't blink. "Sir?" I called out, dumbly. He lunged. "Run!" Irene shouted. We ran. I didn't look back, but I heard him, bare feet slapping the tile, wet and fast. The air behind us felt wrong, heavy. We reached the laundry room. Irene slammed the door, shoved a metal cart against it. Then he hit it hard, over and over. The sound wasn't panic, it was hunger. "What is that?" I yelled. Irene's voice was tight. "That door's been sealed for years. He was inside. There's another exit," she said, "through storage." She turned the key in the side door, then silence. The pounding stopped, but not the breathing. Now it was above us. I looked up, just in time to see the vent grate slide open. A shape slithered past. No. "Irene, go!" she barked. We sprinted through storage, narrow aisles, boxes to the ceiling. Dim red light barely touched anything. Behind us, clang. The vent cover dropped. He was in the room. We ducked behind a shelving rack. I could barely breathe. Irene put a finger to her lips. Then she stood up, stepped into the open. "I'm getting out of here," she yelled. Then she ran. My heart sank. After all that, she left me? I stayed hidden, alone, listening. But nothing came. No footsteps, no breathing, just silence. Then, boots, radios, voices. Security found me. They had him. Not a monster, a man, a former orderly, fired for assault. Disappeared years ago. Everyone thought he was dead. He'd been living down here, waiting. Irene had fought him off with a broken broomstick, lured him into a stairwell and locked him in. She didn't run from me. She ran for me. She came back later, covered in grime, calm as ever. She tossed me my backpack. "You dropped it in storage." I stared at her, still shaking. "You thought I'd leave?" she said finally. "Nah, not you. You're a good man, Mateo." Then she lit a cigarette, turned away, didn't say another word. I still work nights, still sort bloodied linens, still smell bleach and worse. But now I pay attention to corners, and every time Irene nods at me from across the room, I nod back, because now I know who she really is. Solid, brave, and the last person I'd ever call cold. They say hospitals are safe, clean, controlled, full of trained people ready to save you when things go wrong. I used to believe that. I've worked 23 years in emergency medicine, ER nurse, night shift. I've seen things that would twist your stomach, stabbings, overdoses, psychotic breaks, bodies broken by accidents and by other people. You learn, over time, to make your heart callous. Not cold, just buffered. But you keep working, because someone's got to. I used to think nothing could really scare me anymore. Then one night, after a double shift that nearly killed me, I took a late bathroom break and almost didn't walk back out. 7:40 p.m. I remember because I glanced at the wall clock as I slipped out of the trauma bay. The shift had been hell. A pileup on the interstate dumped half a dozen trauma cases on us in under 20 minutes. 3 nurses had called out. One of our new interns burst into tears halfway through a code. I'd had nothing but a sleeve of graham crackers and 2 sips of lukewarm coffee since noon. My stomach felt like it was eating itself. But the break room was packed, loud with conversation, cell phone alerts, vending machines, and the kind of dark humor exhausted medical people use to keep from breaking. I couldn't take the noise. So I went where no one ever does after dark, the basement cafeteria. Technically, it's open 24 hours, but nobody uses it, not since a patient had a heart attack down there at 3 a.m. Took 10 minutes before anyone even found him. Now it's just old vending machines, a couple of flickering lights, and rows of empty tables. And quiet. God, it's quiet. I dropped my bag on a chair, sat down, and closed my eyes. The stillness hit harder than I expected. My limbs felt like sandbags. My spine buzzed. 10 minutes, I told myself, then home. Sleep for 8 hours, maybe 12. But my bladder had other plans. I sighed, pushed up from the table, and headed down a side hallway most people forget exists. It leads to a little used restroom that for some reason never got remodeled with the others. Old tile, yellowing walls, 2 stalls, 1 sink. A paper towel dispenser that wheezed but never worked. The overhead light flickered with a high-pitched hum, making the air feel static charged. When I stepped inside, one of the stalls was closed. No big deal. I walked over to the other stall. That's when I heard it. Snap. A small metallic sound. Not a zipper, not a belt buckle. A sharper kind of click. Then another. I stiffened, tilted my head, tried to tell myself it was nothing. I glanced down. Boots. Heavy, scuffed work boots. The kind you'd see on a job site or soldier, caked with something dark. Paint, maybe, or old, dried mud. But the smell told me it wasn't mud, a sharp chemical odor. Not urine, not sweat, not antiseptic. Industrial. Familiar in a bad way. The kind of scent that hangs in trauma bays when someone burns off a hand in an accident. And then, a low mutter. I couldn't catch the words at first, just the sound, rambling, angry. My skin went cold. I strained to listen. Think they can ignore me? Think I'm nobody? The voice was male, mid-40s maybe, rough, unsteady, and furious. I felt something sour rise in my throat. Then I remembered. Earlier that afternoon, security had walked out a man from triage, middle-aged, bloodshot eyes, work boots, ranting about malpractice, about how the hospital killed his wife. He'd stared at every nurse who passed. I'd glanced at him just once and felt something awful behind his eyes. He hadn't left, he'd waited. And he was in the stall across mine. My phone, still in my bag, still on the table in the cafeteria. Of course it was. I barely breathed, pulse hammering so loud it hurt my ears. I forced myself to move, slowly, quietly, leaned forward, peered through the thin crack in the stall door. His elbow moved, slow, methodical. He was reaching into something, and something flashed. Not a wrench, not a pipe, a hammer. Old, heavy, well-worn handle, he muttered again. Nobody cares, until they bleed. My stomach dropped. I had seconds. He didn't know for sure I was in there, but he was getting ready to do something. And it wasn't fixing a sink. Every rational part of me screamed to freeze, to wait, to hide. But something deeper, that primal survival thing we bury under professionalism and civility, told me to run. I braced myself, tensed every muscle. Then I slammed the stall door open with everything I had. It crashed into him, hard. The hammer clattered to the floor. He staggered sideways into the opposite wall. I didn't wait. I ran. He grabbed for me, fingers closing on my sleeve. I twisted, dropped low, and drove my elbow into his ribs, the way they taught us years ago in a half-forgotten hospital self-defense class. He grunted, staggered. 2 custodians were pushing a mop bucket down the hall. I must have looked insane. "Help! He's got a weapon! Lock it down!" One of them ran to the emergency panel by the elevator. The other fumbled for his radio. I didn't stop. Didn't slow down until I reached the security phone by the main stairwell. I called it in. Within 2 minutes, security had the basement locked down. They cornered him in the bathroom. Talked him down. Didn't even have to tase him. When they searched his backpack, they found more tools. A hammer, pliers, duct tape, gloves. Nothing illegal, but nothing innocent either. He told them he wasn't going to hurt anybody, just wanted to scare someone. Said the hospital killed his wife. Said nurses don't care. He didn't want me specifically. He wanted any of us. Just one nurse to bleed for what he lost. They pressed charges, banned him from the property, added more cameras, locked the cafeteria after 6, but rules don't make you feel safe. Not really. Not when you've felt your pulse pound in your ears in a silent restroom. Not when you've seen a hammer meant for your skull lying on cracked tile. We keep moving, because we have to. Because if we stopped every time something felt off, we'd never finish a shift. But that night taught me something I'll never forget. Ignoring the wrong thing can cost you everything. Now, I keep my phone in my pocket. I check every stall. I trust the knot in my stomach when it tightens. Because danger doesn't always live on the street. Sometimes, it waits in the quietest places. Even inside a hospital. Even in the next stall over.